When Russia attacked Ukraine in February 2022, a group of Russians who are against the war banded together to help Ukrainian refugees fleeing the war zone.
Who else but Russians? Who else but Russians who feel the same horror inside?
They also gathered food supplies from all over Europe to ship into Ukraine.
Well, we can't stop the war, but we can help you.
They realized that many Russians would consider them traitors.
Few of them may find me a traitor, but I don't care.
The story of Russians for Ukraine. Every day in Przemysl, a small city on the Polish border with Ukraine, trains pull into the station and fill up with Ukrainian war refugees who are on a journey from their destroyed homes to safety somewhere in Europe. Refugees might be surprised to be greeted by a volunteer organization called Russians for Ukraine, staffed by opponents of the Putin regime. The group is led today by Russian-Canadian Tatiana Rogova from Toronto. Rogova is a whirlwind. She is keeping track of which refugee family goes on which rail car and advises them where to change trains at the next stop. Among the refugees today is the Shevchuk family from a recently liberated town in the Donetsk region. Grandson Oleksiy is accompanying his grandfather Pyotr, 86, who is confined to a wheelchair. Rogova makes sure there is medication provided to those who are ill, and that there are enough helpers to get the infirm onto the train and get them settled in. She has been doing this volunteer work since the early months of the war. Today there is only one wheelchair. Sometimes there have been 3 or 4 at a time.
To load 4 wheelchair people in a train, that was tough. Now I can handle, I have the experience. But at the beginning it was so tough. Like I had no idea how to deal, because they are very fragile, frail, old.
So there was up to 10 tents. The big one, the small ones, people were sleeping on the outside all summer.
Russians for Ukraine maintains this modest Polish headquarters building just 1 kilometer from the border. There are rooms for the dozens of volunteers to take turns sleeping. Here they collect food and supplies from all over Europe to be shipped into Ukraine.
3 huge trucks came from Belgium, and they brought food, they brought clothes, they brought lots of stuff.
Tatiana Rogova had been in Canada for 15 years, and for a while was running her own restaurant in Toronto. When Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, because of her Russian heritage, she felt that her world was being ripped apart. She was filled with a sense of guilt and shame.
And all my friends, all my family, we were all terrorized. It's such a strong pain, tearing pain. You simply feel that you're part of that. Imagine your father is Chikatilo. Chikatilo is a very famous guy who killed up to 60 people. I may be mistaken.
He was a Russian mass murderer.
Yeah, mass murderer, maniac.
Mm-hmm.
So that feelings, your father is that guy, and it's shocking. But I felt I need someone who can understand me. So who else but Russians? Who else but Russians who feel the same horror inside?
Russians for Ukraine was founded by George Nermanov from Omsk, whose family left Russia for Holland 12 years ago because they couldn't stand Vladimir Putin.
I don't like that my motherland is doing on behalf of me, and trying to struggle with it and trying to help those who suffered from the actions from this war started by Putin, started by contemporary Russia.
If a lot of Russians would see this on television, would they consider you a traitor?
Few of them may find me a traitor, but I don't care.
The house has a garage that is filled with boxes of clothing and blankets, and old suitcases.
On the train station, there are people whose case suddenly break. Like the suitcases is very valuable currency at the train station in Przemysl because many of them at the beginning of the war, they were carrying plastic bags.
I see wheelchairs.
Yeah, wheelchairs, the automatic one, and like lots of wheelchairs went through that garage because we have shelter where lots of people with disabilities, and we just give them. And they don't expect it. Like, can I take it? Yes, you can take it. And one woman recently, she was crying. She was on the train station, she was crying when she realized that it's hers.
Among the Russian volunteers here is Nikolai Kuznetsov from Central Russia.
Why are you doing this?
We gotta do something. Well, we can't stop the war, but we can help people.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we do this.
Do you have family members in Russia who disagree with you?
Well, actually, yeah. Mm-hmm. There are some. My cousins, aunts, uncles. Well, I'm happy with my parents, my brothers, they're supporting me. So I'm happy, but you know, a lot of families in Russia, this war like divides them. It's like a crack inside the families, you know. It's very bad.
Rogova helps some refugees who are just getting a break before returning home to Ukraine.
I remember there was one very old woman. She came, and the reason she came, she said, I want to sleep. I haven't slept for 4 months. I just want to sleep because of the bomb and sirens. We just find her the nearest shelter, and I just sent her to sleep. And she was going to go back.
One of the workers at the Russians for Ukraine house is professional musician Anton Strashnov-Pirsky. He fills the air with somber music, matching the mood of Russian volunteers here. They are not optimistic that this war can end anytime soon.
Now different scenarios of the regime in Russia, it can go, we ran out of optimistic scenarios. So now is very gloomy ones. And so maybe when it's so dark, maybe they say it's very dark.
Before the dawn.
Before the dawn.
Tatiana says that when dark thoughts overcome her, she tries to focus on the little she can do to make things better for refugees.
Yes, that's the most rewarding work I ever had. It's difficult. It's very difficult to explain why it's so much better than money. It's just, human, like Koля said once, it's human to human. Like it's such a sincere interaction. When they say you, дякую, дякую is thank you in Ukrainian. And I learned how to say будь ласка. Будь ласка is you're welcome in Ukrainian. And sometimes you hug, and it's good. It feels so good. And when you go back home and you're going to bed, and I just remember all the smiles, I remember these words, I remember this warmness, and I said, okay, it's okay. I lived this one day, it was not a waste. Good. Yeah, that's reward.
The street musician at the Polish rail station plays a famous Russian waltz. Tatiana Rogova and the Russian volunteers who work here every day say they are doing it to preserve their own sanity and to send a message to Vladimir Putin and to the world that there are plenty of Russians who oppose this war.